The stars above were dying. One by one, their light bent and bled away, as if the universe itself recoiled from what had arrived. In the void between galaxies, something vast and radiant stirred her, being not born of cosmic accident, but of human will sharpened beyond comprehension. The Emperor of mankind, the Master of the Imperium, the undying Sentinel of Terror, had crossed a threshold no mortal could name. He stepped through the skein of reality, and what waited on the other side was a universe filled not with faith, but with gods who wore masks of flesh and thunder. For eons he had ruled over men who worshipped him as divinity, even as his mortal shell decayed upon the golden throne. But in this place, the Marvel cosmos, the gods were not silent. They fought, they bled, they boasted. They built their heavens on spectacle and their myths on survival. And when the Emperor's gaze fell upon them, the silence of his mind was like the weight of eternity pressing against a child's dream. If he had come seeking allies, the stars themselves might have bent in awe. But if he had come as conqueror, then not even gods could stand unbroken. Before we descend into that collision between the faith-forged Titan of mankind and the pantheon of marvels, gods take a breath. If stories of unimaginable power, of worlds at war with destiny, ignite the ember of wonder within you, then lend this chronicle your strength. Like, share, and subscribe, for, in this telling, your voice joins the chorus of the Immaterium, and every echo shapes the tale yet to unfold. The first sound to return was the wind, soft, thin, trembling against the fractured edges of existence. It whispered across the surface of a world not yet aware of what had arrived. For a heartbeat that lasted the span of suns dying, all of reality seemed to pause. Then light came, radiant, blinding, golden beyond gold. It was not the light of a star, nor the conjuring of any known god. It was the light of will made manifest, a psychic eruption so vast that time itself staggered to contain it. The Emperor of mankind had crossed the veil. His form, neither Holy Spirit nor flesh, emerged at the edge of this new cosmos like a blade piercing a curtain of shadow. The void bent beneath him. Planets trembled in their orbits, and in the minds of sensitive beings across the stars, a single pulse of thought bloomed like fire. He has come. He felt it, tooth dissonance. The Immaterium here was strange, thin and shallow, like a reflection without depth. It shimmered with colors that mocked the warp, yet lacked its hunger. Where once he had felt the howling of demons, now there was silence and absence so complete it felt unnatural. The Astronomicon no longer burned at his command. The golden throne, that wretched machine of eternity, was gone. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Emperor stood free of its prison. The place he had arrived upon was a planet called Earth, but it was not his terror. The air was rung cleaner, yet hollow. The sky bore no orbital hulks, no hive smog or industrial ash. Cities glimmered with light, but none bore the sigils of the Imperium. He walked through streets where humanity lived without chains, their machines singing not in prayer but in ignorance. It was civilization without faith, order without unity. He saw men and women wielding powers born not of psychic mutation but of accident, science, or alien craft. He watched them fly through the air, their colors bright, their laughter undimmed by fear. They called themselves heroes. They fought monsters and gods alike, but their wars ended in celebration, not servitude. Humanity here was fractured yet free, and that freedom unsettled him more than any Xenos ever had. The Emperor moved unseen at first, cloaking his radiance within the folds of reality. His psychic form extended outward, touching every continent in an instant. He saw the patterns of human life, their governments, their conflicts, their dreams. He saw that this earth had achieved much in ignorance of him, and that realization struck deeper than any wound the Horus, heresy, had left upon his soul. For millennia, he had sacrificed countless lives to preserve humanity's survival. Yet here, in another cosmos, mankind had flourished without him. He descended into a ruined place once scarred by war, New York City's shattered edge, where remnants of a battle still smoldered from some alien invasion. The ground was littered with twisted metal and glass, the air heavy with the echo of courage and death. His boots, heavy with age and purpose, touched the earth softly. Around him, time seemed to slow. Every molecule bent toward reverence, though no one yet knew why. In the mind of one man, an aging veteran, sweeping the rubble, something awoke. The man froze, his breath caught in his throat. He turned, sensing a presence behind him far beyond comprehension. The Emperor's eyes met his, and for a moment the mortal's entire existence unfurled before that golden gaze. His youth, his sins, his triumphs, his fears. Tears rolled down the man's cheeks as he dropped to his knees. Trembling, his soul instinctively recognizing divinity even when his mind could not. The Emperor said nothing. Words were lesser tools than truth. His aura alone communicated 1,000 sermons of light and silence. Yet deep within him, something stirred, a question he had not asked in millennia. If this world could thrive without the Imperium, had his sacrifice been necessary at all? That thought was cut short by the flicker of power across the skyline. Energyra, artificial, arrogant, lanced through the air. He turned his gaze toward it and saw a man of iron descending from the clouds. Armor gleaming in the sun, voice sharp and digital. The man spoke with confidence born of genius. "Identify yourself," said the armored being. "You're not showing up on any system, and your energy readings are off the charts. If you're part of another alien incursion, I'd recommend leaving before we make this complicated." The Emperor's presence struck the Iron Man like a tidal wave. Every system in the suit faltered, every circuit shuddered under the weight of psychic interference. For a moment, Tony Stark could not breathe. The voice that entered his mind was not sound, but absolute command. "I am no alien," the Emperor said, though his lips did not move. "I am man made perfect, and I have come to see what became of my children." Iron Man fell to one knee, gasping as his HUD shattered into static. He felt the edges of something vast, something human yet infinite touching his consciousness. His heart raced, his logic screamed, "You're human." He managed to choke out, "You've got a funny way of showing it." The Emperor looked upon him, not with anger, but with the weary patience of a father seeing his offspring play at war. "You call yourselves heroes," he said, the words echoing not in air but in soul. "Yet your kind knows nothing of unity. You fight for symbols, not survival. You fight for the world, not the species. You stand divided before the infinite." Before Tony could respond, the air cracked with thunder. A figure descended in a storm of lightning, and Pride saw, son of Odin, his hammer ablaze with divine might. He saw the golden figure standing over the armored mortal and mistook it for an attack. "Release him, stranger." Thor's voice boomed like judgment. "No man shall fall before my eyes while I draw breath." The Emperor turned his gaze toward the god, and for a heartbeat, the Asgardian faltered. His hammer trembled in his hand. He felt it instantly, this was no mortal. Nor was it any god he had known. It was something far older, something that had once ruled not by divine right, but by the pure gravity of will. The storm above them began to calm, the lightning dimming as though afraid. The Emperor spoke softly, yet every atom of creation seemed to lean closer to listen. "I have no quarrel with you, son of Asgard," he said. "But understand, this your kind's divinity is a candle beside the sun." The sky flared gold again, and the air grew heavy. Tony's senses went dead. Thor's lightning faltered, and from the depths of this alien world, a dozen unseen eyes turned toward the disturbance. The Sorcerer Supreme felt it first. In the Sanctum Sanctorum, Doctor Strange opened his eyes, sweat beading on his brow as every ward screamed in warning. Something beyond the multiverse had breached their realm, not a demon, not a god, but a consciousness that radiated order. He rose to his feet, cloak stirring like blood in water. "By the Vish," he whispered, "what have we invited into our world?" The Emperor stood still, his gaze upon the heavens. The sun was too bright, the air too light, the people too fragile. And yet, for the first time in 10 millennia, he felt something like awe. This world was not his, yet it had survived the darkness without him. That alone made it worthy of his judgment. He raised a hand toward the skyline, and a faint ripple spread across the psychic spectrum, a call, not of conquest, but of reckoning. Across the Marvel universe, the powerful and the divine turned their attention toward Earth, sensing something older than all their myths, something that did not belong in that moment. The Emperor of mankind, the master of humanity, became the most dangerous being this universe had ever known. For hours, or perhaps eternities, the Emperor stood in silence. Around him, the air vibrated with a faint tremor of collapsing reality. He could sense it now, in every direction, the subtle pulse of entities pretending to godhood. The Celestials shone like full suns far beyond the stratosphere, watching the disturbance from across galaxies. In the sanctum, strangers' wards flickered like dying candles. Even the mutants, those fractured echoes of human evolution, twitched beneath the weight of his psychic hum. Yet, despite the immensity of his arrival, he felt something he had not known since the days before the Great Crusade: curiosity. This realm's rules were strange. The warp was weak here, subdued, its tides distant, almost tamed. There was no chaos, no whispers of the ruinous powers clawing at the edges of his mind. The silence was beautiful, unnatural, disorienting. It was a peace he had never known. Tony Stark's systems finally stabilized. The Iron Man armor sputtered back to life, but the man inside was still pale, his breath shallow. He stared up at the towering figure before him, a being who looked human but radiated something far beyond comprehension. "You said you're human," Tony murmured, voice half awe, half fear. "If that's true, then what the hell happened to us in your world?" The Emperor's gaze turned downward, and for an instant the man of iron felt the weight of 10,000 years in that silence. "Mankind forgot its purpose," the Emperor said at last, his voice layered with echoes of galaxies. "They traded unity for faith, knowledge for worship, truth for survival. I built an imperium to save them, and became their god by necessity, not design." Thor's eyes narrowed, still gripping his hammer. "You speak as if you carry the weight of all creation, stranger. If your purpose is peace, then speak it plainly. If it is war, then strike and be done." The Emperor regarded the Asgardian without hostility. "Your kind has walked as gods among mortals for millennia," he said softly. "You have ruled with myth, not with reason. Tell me, son of Odin, What happens to men when gods refuse to die? The question struck deeper than Thor expected. For a fleeting moment, he saw Asgard's ruins burning beneath Surtur's flame. His people scattered through realms, his father gone, his sister slain. They find new gods, Thor replied, or they learn to stand without them. The Emperor's expression, if such a being could be said to have one-shifted almost imperceptibly. There was no contempt, only contemplation. Then perhaps, he said, you are wiser than most I have met. A low hum rolled through the city. Reality itself began to vibrate under the pressure of converging powers. Doctor Strange peered through a rip in space, the eye of Agamotto burning like a second sun upon his chest. The cloak of levitation swirled behind him as he landed, palms raised, eyes glowing with mystic flame. Whatever you are, Strange, said voice, tight. Your presence is disrupting dimensional stability. This world's fabric wasn't built to contain your magnitude. If you mean us no harm, then I ask you, Lev. The Emperor turned his gaze toward the sorcerer, studying the relic upon his neck. You channel time through a fragment of infinity, he said. You wield power that bends creation, yet you ask for balance, not control. That is rare, Strange's brow furrowed. Then you understand why I can't let you stay. You misunderstand. The Emperor stepped closer. His voice was calm, but each word carried like thunder. I am not here to conquer. I am here to judge. Energy rippled across the skyline. The sorcerer's sigils flared. Thor raised me. Tony primed his repulse. For one perfect instant, the world seemed poised on the edge of war. But the Emperor merely raised his hand not in aggression, but benediction. A light spread from his palm, gold yet soft, touching every mind in its path. In a heartbeat, the noise of the city fell silent. Cars froze, wind stilled, even the birds in flight hung suspended in the air. In that silence, humanity felt him not as a god of conquest, but as the idea of what they could have been. They saw empires, sacrifice, the dream of unity carved across the stars. Some wept, others fell to their knees. None could look away. When the vision faded, Strange staggered back, eyes wide with horror and awe. You've shown them eternity, he whispered. Do you realize what you've done? Minds aren't meant to hold that much truth. They will forget, the Emperor said, but their souls will remember. Even if they do not know why, Thor exhaled slowly, lowering his hammer. If you seek judgment, then know this. Our gods are flawed, our men imperfect, but we fight to protect what is ours. Whatever you once were, Emperor, this is not your world. The Emperor's eyes glowed brighter. All worlds belong to humanity, whether they remember me or not. Before another word could pass, the horizon split open in flame. The sky burned red. From the upper atmosphere, a fleet of ships appeared sleek, black, alien. The Chitauri had returned, drawn by the psychic beacon that had flared across the cosmos. Iron Man's systems screamed with alerts. Oh great, he muttered. First a golden god, now an alien armada. Just another Tuesday. The Emperor looked to the sky, expression unreadable. He raised his hand, and the light from his eyes flared so bright it turned night to dawn. His voice rolled across the earth like the roar of an ancient storm. Then let this world witness. He said, what humanity becomes when guided by its true Emperor. The heavens opened, and war began again. The first Chitauri craft broke through the cloud line, its hull wreathed in fire. The Emperor stood unmoving beneath the descending swarm, his golden form radiating across the skyline like a second dawn. Thor hurled Mjolnir skyward, its trail of lightning carving through the vanguard. Iron Man followed, streaking upward in a flare of red and gold. Targeting systems locking onto the swarm with mechanical precision. But before either could reach the nearest formation, the Emperor raised his hand. The world itself seemed to hold its breath. In an instant, the fleet froze mid-air. Not through magnetism, not through gravity, but through will. Every Chitauri pilot screamed as their minds were cut from command. Every circuit faltered, every weapon went cold. The Emperor's psychic presence unfurled like a tidal wave, pressing against the entire invasion force. Then, with a gesture as subtle as a whisper, he crushed them. No explosion followed, no spectacle, no thunder. The ships simply ceased to be, reduced to ash and silence in the span of a heartbeat. The golden light faded, leaving only drifting motes of dust where an army had been. Thor lowered his hammer in stunned reverence. By the North, he murmured, "What manner of being wields such power?" Tony hovered beside him, armor still crackling from EMP backlash. "Remind me to never complain about alien invasions again," he said, trying to mask the tremor in his voice. That wasn't power, that was erasure. On the ground, Dr. Strange looked to the Emperor, his mind struggling to frame the scale of what he'd witnessed. "You didn't just destroy them," he said. "You unmade them. You reached into the foundation of their being and tore it apart." The Emperor's voice was calm, almost sorrowful. They were not worth saving. He turned his gaze toward the horizon, where the sun rose weakly over the Atlantic. This world has forgotten how small cruelty begins. It grows from neglect, from division, from the illusion that humanity can thrive without unity. Stranger's eyes hardened. Unity without freedom is tyranny. You, of all beings, should understand that. The Emperor regarded him for a long moment. Freedom without purpose is decay. For the first time since his arrival, the wind stirred again. Dust swirled at his feet, as though even the elements hesitated to touch him. He began to walk not in haste, but with an inevitability that pulled the city into stillness. Wherever his shadow passed, the broken metal of battlefields shimmered, reassembling into perfect geometric form. Buildings scarred by past wars stood whole again. The wounded felt their pain ease, but the miracle brought no joy, only silence. There was no triumph in his restoration, only order, absolute and cold. Cameras caught the image, of course. Around the globe, screens flickered to life with his visage. News networks, satellites, and even handheld phones captured that single, radiant figure walking through a city reborn. Within hours, humanity had seen him every government, every hidden bunker, every secret organization, and everywhere one question spread faster than light itself. Who is he? On the helicarrier, Nick Fury watched the feed in disbelief. "That ain't no god I've ever seen," he muttered, "and I've seen a few." Behind him, Natasha and Steve exchanged wary looks. "He stopped an alien invasion with a thought," Steve said quietly, "and then rebuilt the city." "That's not power," Natasha whispered. "That's authority," Fury turned. "Get me everything you can. Energy readings, biological scans, psychic signatures. If this guy sneezes, I want to know the color of the light." But even S.H.I.E.L.'s instruments were blind to him. Their sensors could read nothing. Their satellites flickered to static whenever they tried to focus on his form. The emperor of mankind had become the center of an unspoken storm, a riddle in the heart of the modern age. In a hidden corner of the multiverse, other eyes took notice. The Celestials stirred from their endless watch. The living tribunal, silent arbiter of cosmic law, tilted its veiled head. Even the one above all, that omnipresent whisper of creation itself, seemed to pause. A ripple moved across the infinity of the Marvel cosmos, as if reality had remembered something ancient and human and was terrified by it. Back on Earth, the Emperor stopped before the ruins of an old church. The stone was crumbling, the cross half broken. Inside, dust danced in golden beams of morning light. He stepped into the silence, and for a long moment, said nothing. When he finally spoke, his voice filled the space like a hymn. "They built this for faith," he murmured. "Faith in what they could not see. Faith in gods who do not answer. Yet still they prayed." He reached out and touched the cracked altar. The stone mended beneath his hand, its fractures glowing faintly. "In my world, they prayed to me," he whispered, more to himself than to any witness. "And I let them." From the doorway, Doctor Strange appeared again. "You could end all suffering here," he said, his voice soft but edged. "But you won't. You'll judge, shape, control, because that's all you know." The Emperor did not look up. "I am what humanity made me. They asked for a god, and I became one." Strange stepped closer. "Then tell me, are you still human?" The Emperor turned, and for a heartbeat, the sorcerer saw something beneath the light, flicker of pain, of memory, of an ancient man buried under 10,000 years of sacrifice. "Perhaps not," he said quietly, "but I still remember why I tried to be." The words lingered like a fading hymn as he walked past, the air shimmering in his wake. Outside, the city watched as the golden figure disappeared into the rising light, leaving only whispers behind. For the first time in this universe's history, the gods of Marvel felt small, and somewhere deep in the immaterium, far beyond the reach of this new cosmos, the faintest echo of laughter stirred. It was not cruel nor kind, but ancient and inevitable. The universe had changed, and none could yet know what that meant. The Emperor's journey across this strange world had only begun. Word of the golden figure spread faster than light could travel. Across continents, the footage of his arrival flooded every screen, every feed, every device. Some called him an angel, others a weapon. Some whispered that he was the second coming of Christ. Governments convened emergency sessions. Religious orders shattered or fused overnight. The world's faiths trembled beneath the weight of something they could neither define nor deny. But above all else, the powerful listened. Those who had tasted divinity in this universe, its heroes, its villains, its gods, felt a shift in the very pulse of reality. Thor returned to Asgard, the echo of that presence still burning behind his eyes. He stood before the shattered throne, once his father's, and felt an emotion he had not known since Ragnarok's insignificance. "He is no god," Thor whispered, "and yet he stands above gods." The realm remained silent. Even Heimdall's voice, reaching through the cosmos, wavered when he spoke. "He burns across the Bifrost like a sun that will not set. If he wills it, all 9 realms could kneel." Far beyond Asgard, among the ruins of Titan, Thanos stirred. His exile had not softened him, only made him more patient. He had felt the psychic tremor the moment it touched the stars. In the Emperor's arrival, the mad Titan sensed something rare. He stood before the black mirror of the void and smiled. "Another who believes in destiny," he murmured. Let him come. Let him see what balance truly means. Meanwhile, on Earth, Strange delved deeper. The sanctum's walls were alive with warnings, every relic humming as though in mourning. The cloak floated anxiously beside him, its folds rippling at unseen currents. Strange spread a constellation of sigils across the air, the patterns fracturing and reforming in endless repetition. The readings were impossible. The energy that surrounded the Emperor was not mystical, nor quantum, nor divine. It was will, refined beyond comprehension. No artifact can measure him, Strange muttered. No law contains him. He exists. Above the equations, from the shadows of his workshop, Tony Stark analyzed the same phenomenon through lenses of logic and data. Every frequency, every magnetic field, every thermal tracer led nowhere. He's rewriting the rules as he walks, Tony muttered, exhaustion in his voice. No origin point, no energy decay, no power source. This isn't technology. It's belief that works. Steve Rogers stood beside him, arms folded, watching the endless projections flicker across the holographic table. Belief, he said. That's faith, Tony. You, of all people, should recognize it. Tony sighed, rubbing his temples. Faith doesn't vaporize starships. But Steve's eyes didn't leave the images of the Emperor's face, calm, unreadable, distant. Maybe it does, he said softly. Maybe that's what faith looks like when it's real. Elsewhere, hidden from mortal sight, the Celestials convened. Their forms vast, shimmering beyond galaxies, turned their eyeless masks toward the disturbance centered on a single blue planet. The eldest among them spoke in waves of thought that rippled through the void. He does not belong. His essence rejects the weave of this reality. If he remains, the balance will fracture. Another replied, voice like collapsing stars. Then erase him, but none moved. Even the Celestials, architects of creation itself, hesitated. They remembered the pulse of his arrival, the way his thought had brushed their own for a fraction of a second, and how it had burned. Back on Earth, the Emperor moved through the world unseen. His radiance diminished now, contained within the shell of humanity. He walked the streets of this strange civilization, watching children play beneath neon lights, hearing laughter untainted by fear of heresy or sanction. The innocence unsettled him. In the Imperium, joy was a relic. Here, it was the air they breathed. A little girl, no older than 7, tugged on his cloak as he passed. Mister, she said, her voice bright and curious, are you an angel? The Emperor paused. Of all the titles ever forced upon him, God-Pro, Master of Mankind, the Light of Terror, this was the only one that made him falter. No, he said gently. I am a teacher. She smiled, unafraid. Then you must be a good one. You glow. He said nothing more, but when she ran back to her mother, he found himself staring at the faint reflection of his own light upon the pavement and wondering, for the first time in centuries, whether he could still be something other than a ruler. But peace never endured. Above him, the air tore open. From the fracture stepped a being of pure fire and Commander Mamu's emissaries, drawn by the resonance of a power they did not understand. The street walked into darkness as the veil of reality thinned. The crowd screamed and scattered, the sky bleeding violet flame. The Emperor looked upward, eyes narrowing. Demonic constructs, he whispered, recognizing their essence at once. They were not chaos, not the true warp-born horrors of his galaxy, but they were close, corrupted, hungry, imperfect reflections of the same disease. He raised his hand. The air ignited with a flare of psychic light, pure and cleansing. The invaders disintegrated, their forms screaming as they were torn apart molecule by molecule. The rift above, sealed with a THUNDERCLAP. When silence returned, Strange appeared again beside him, cloak fluttering. "You destroyed them effortlessly," he said, all laced with accusation. "Do you understand what that kind of energy release could do to our world?" The Emperor regarded him calmly. "I understand that they sought to infect it. I merely prevented decay by playing God, by being what humanity made me." The two stared at one another, the sorcerer and the Emperor, each recognizing in the other a man who had once been human and could no longer afford to be dot above them. In the cold halls of the cosmos, the living tribunal watched. One of its three faces turned toward the earth and whispered in the voice of eternity, "Judgment has arrived." The universe trembled, unsure whether to kneel or to hide. When night returned to the planet, it came uneasily. The stars above no longer seemed familiar, their constellations subtly warped, as if the Emperor's arrival had shifted the geometry of the cosmos itself. Cities slept beneath a quiet that was not peace, but anticipation. Every sensor, every spell, every telescope aimed toward. The heavens found only static where his presence had touched. It was as though he had carved a silence into the sky and left it there as a wound. In Wakanda, the ancestral plane rippled. Shuri and T'Challa, a spirit bound in the twilight realm between life and memory, felt the same distortion. The dead stirred uneasily. The panther gods themselves turned their eyes toward the rift between worlds, and even they hesitated. "There walks a power without ancestry," whispered Bast, her voice like velvet thunder. "He is not born of this creation." Across the ocean, Charles Xavier woke screaming. Cerebro's circuits flared to life, throwing arcs of blue psychic lightning across his study. The Emperor's mind brushed against his for a moment, accidental, effortless, yet cataclysmic. It was not an attack. It was the psychic equivalent of a mountain noticing an ant. For that fleeting instant, Xavier saw it all. Humanity's extinction, rebirth, empire, and endless war. He saw the death of stars, the rise of faith, and the decay of reason. He saw 10,000 years of unending sacrifice. And when the vision released him, his first words were a whisper of awe and terror. "He loves us," and it breaks him. News spread of strange miracles in his wake. A soldier, crippled in Sokovia's aftermath, awoke one morning to find his limbs whole again. A blind monk in Tibet opened his eyes to see the world for the first time in 50 years. Entire cities reported power surges without origin, synchronized heartbeats among millions, whispers of unity in the collective subconscious. It was as if humanity itself had become an orchestra and the Emperor its silent conductor. But miracles, as always, invited fear. The United Nations convened under emergency protocols. Representatives of nations, gods, and geniuses debated for 23 hours. Some demanded his worship. Others demanded his destruction. The Avengers stood divided. Tony argued that no entity could be allowed unchecked power. Steve insisted that perhaps, just this once, unchecked power might not mean tyranny. Amid the chaos, a voice cut through the static cold, resonant and synthetic. Ultron had returned. He had felt the Emperor's mind ripple through the digital networks of the planet, an interference so immense that even his hidden code shuddered in pain. You call him savior, Ultron said, through every screen on Earth, but I have seen his kind. I was born of your arrogance, and he is born of your desperation. One builds machines to end war. The other builds empires to end freedom. Both forget what life truly is. The Emperor stood upon a plateau in the Himalayas as the broadcast played. The night was thin here, the stars brighter than anywhere on Earth. His cloak stirred in the cold wind, and he watched the flicker of screens in the villages below. He did not respond aloud. Ultron was not wrong. Humanity had always built its own prisons, called them protection, and worshipped the architects afterward. He raised his gaze toward the heavens. He could feel the presence of cosmic watchers, the ones this universe called gods. They hovered at the edges of his perception like curious insects, hiding behind the veils of dimension. And then one of them stepped forward. The sky darkened. The ground cracked. A column of pure energy descended before him, coalescing into the form of a being too immense for human eyes to comprehend. Arishem, the Judge, one of the eldest Celestials, towered above the mountains. His voice was not sound, but pressure, a vibration that made even the stones weep. You do not belong here. The Emperor looked upward, unflinching. I belong wherever humanity endures. Your existence disrupts the weave of this reality. Your will is law where law has already been written. Depart or be unmade. The wind howled across the peaks. The Emperor's golden aura brightened, yet his voice remained calm. I have seen laws written in blood and broken by gods. I have seen galaxies burn for lesser decrees. Tell me, Judge who made your law. Arishem paused. For the first time in eons, a Celestial hesitated. Beneath the weight of that question, the cosmos itself seemed to hold its breath. You are a threat, Arishem said finally. You carry death where you walk. I carry order, the Emperor replied. If that is death to chaos, so be it. The Celestial's eyes flared red, vast enough to drown mountains in light. The sky cracked like glass. But before the blow could fall, the Emperor lifted his hand and the attack froze midair. The raw energy of a dying sun hung motionless, particles trembling as if begging for release. The mountain beneath his feet fractured, yet he did not move. The Emperor's voice rang across creation. You call yourself judge, then be judged. He turned the energy back upon its maker. The beam shattered through Arishem's chest, tearing a hole through the cosmic armor. No scream came, for the Celestial's pain was beyond sound. He staggered, collapsing backward into the void, vanishing into the dark between worlds. The silence that followed was not victory, it was revelation. The other Celestials withdrew instantly, their light dimming across the stars. The universe had just witnessed the impossible, a man, not a god, striking down a being that had written galaxies into existence. Doctor Strange felt it in every atom of his soul. He fell to his knees in the sanctum, whispering, "He's rewriting hierarchy itself." Tony stared at his data feeds, whispering to himself as the readings collapsed. He's not changing the rules, he's making new ones. The Emperor lowered his hand. For a moment, he looked to the heavens, and there was sorrow in his gaze. "I did not come to destroy your gods," he murmured, "only to remind them what one looks like." For 3 days, the universe reeled from what it had witnessed. Across countless worlds, cosmic entities whispered in disbelief. The death of a Celestial was not a mere event, was a fracture in creation's foundation, a question the multiverse could not answer. Even the living tribunal, eternal arbiter of cosmic balance, remained silent. Its three faces turned inward, as if seeking counsel within itself. On Earth, the effect was immediate and terrible. Storms erupted without warning, tides rose against continents, the sky bled colors unseen by human eyes. The Emperor's psychic resonance had unbalanced everything: Magneto's fears, ley lines, even the subtle hum of quantum fields. His presence was too vast for this fragile reality to contain, and yet he stood unmoved, cloaked in golden calm. His will steady against the chaos he had not intended but could not undo. In the ruins of the Himalayas, he waited. The wind tore through the broken peaks, scattering dust like ash across the snow. He could feel them coming, the mortals, the gods, the machines, all converging, drawn by fear, curiosity, or duty. The Avengers arrived first, descending in silence aboard a Quinjet that hummed against the cold. The ramp opened, and one by one they emerged. Captain America at the front, shield gleaming faintly beneath the dim sun. Thor beside him, jaw set and eyes wary. Iron Man hovering just above the ground, armor scarred from a dozen battles, but ready nonetheless. Strange materialized from nothing, cloak whispering in the mountain wind. They stood before him, united not by agreement, but by necessity. The Emperor's gaze swept across them not with disdain, but with the detached patience of one who had seen humanity in every possible form. Steve spoke first. "We don't want to fight you." The Emperor inclined his head slightly, golden light flickering around his form. "Nor do I desire battle. War is the final language of those who have failed to reason." "Then reason with us," Tony said, voice filtered through steel. "Because whatever you did to that cosmic giant, you just broke the physics of our universe. If you keep flexing like that, reality itself is going to come apart." The Emperor's eyes flickered with something almost human fatigue. "Your universe bends too easily. It was built for spectacle, not endurance." Thor stepped forward, lightning murmuring along Mjolnir's surface. "And yet it has survived for millennia without your hand upon it. If it breaks under your will, perhaps the fault lies not with the world but with you." The wind howled through the peaks, carrying silence with it. For a moment, none spoke. Then the Emperor said softly, "You speak as one who knows loss. Thunder God, tell me how many of your realms have perished beneath your watch." Thor's jaw tightened, but he did not answer. The Emperor stepped closer. "You are gods who play at mortality. You wield power to preserve yourselves, not to elevate your kind. You guard fragments of existence, not its destiny. I have walked through 10,000 years of slaughter to protect my species. I have seen what it becomes without guidance. You," his voice deepened, echoing through the mountains, "you let your people forget what they are." Tony cut in before the weight of those words could crush them. "We're not gods," he said, sharp. "We're just trying to keep the world standing." "Then you are better than most who claim divinity," the Emperor replied. "And worse than those who dare to hope." Stranger's eyes flashed. "You speak of hope, but your aura smothers it. Your will dominates everything it touches. You call it unity, but it's control." The Emperor turned his gaze upon him, and Strange felt the pressure of eternity settle behind his eyes. "Control is not oppression when it spares humanity from chaos." "Chaos," Strange repeated, shaking his head. "You mean freedom." A silence fell again, heavy and electric. The snow hissed where it touched the Emperor's aura, melting before it could land. He stood still, gazing past them all. as though looking beyond the visible spectrum of existence. Then he spoke not to them, but to the world itself. In my realm, humanity's soul burns dim. They pray for salvation that never comes. Here, they have gods and still suffer. Perhaps I was wrong. Perhaps no universe deserves saving. Steve stepped forward, his voice steady and unyielding. You talk about saving people, but you sound like a man who's forgotten what they are. You see billions of souls as equations. We see them as choices. That's the difference. The Emperor's golden eyes met his, and something inside that endless gaze faltered just for an instant. There was memory there, of ancient battlefields, of nameless soldiers dying for a dream they barely understood. For a heartbeat, he saw Rogel, Dawn, Sanguinius, even Horus, and the ghosts of what humanity once was. You remind me of someone I once knew, he murmured. A soldier who defied me to save what I could not see. He died believing in men, not in gods. Steve's reply was quiet. Maybe he was right. The wind rose again, carrying with it the distant sound of thunder not from weather, but from the heavens themselves. A new presence had entered the world, vast and unbound. The Emperor turned toward it and saw a figure descending through the atmosphere, burning like a comet. Energy radiated in hues no mortal I could define. It was the Silver Surfer, herald of Galactus, drawn by the disturbance in the cosmic balance. He landed upon the peak, board gleaming, eyes reflecting starlight. I have come to witness the source of the disruption, he said, voice like tempered silver. You have slain one of the makers. The devourer of worlds will not ignore this. The Emperor's expression did not change. Let him come. The surfer's gaze sharpened. You do not understand. Galactus is hunger incarnate. He consumes to preserve balance. If you threaten that equilibrium, he will devour your world to restore it. The Emperor turned his face to the stars. Then I will teach your god to starve. And with that, the night split open. In the void beyond the moon, a shadow moved, massive, incomprehensible, ancient. Galactus stirred from his slumber, drawn by a light he had not felt since the birth of creation. Planets trembled in their orbits, and the stars themselves seemed to lean closer, as though to watch. For the first time in eons, Galactus opened his eyes, and the Emperor of mankind smiled. Space itself twisted as Galactus awoke. His colossal form rose like a continent of shadow, towering across the gulf between worlds. His armor shone with the light of dying suns, his eyes burning with hunger older than language. The Silver Surfer hovered before him, his voice silent yet pleading across the cosmic tide. Master, this being threatens the balance. He unmade a celestial. Galactus's voice echoed through dimensions, a vibration that rippled through every molecule of existence. I felt it. A will that dares to rival creation. Show me. From the earth below, the Emperor raised his gaze to the stars. For the first time since entering this reality, he felt something familiar, an adversary worthy of his notice. Not a god of prayer or myth, but a being of purpose. The devourer of worlds was no mere tyrant. He was necessity given form, entropy made flesh. In Galactus, the Emperor saw the cold logic of the universe itself. Across the world, humanity watched the sky ignite. The auroras flared crimson, clouds swirled into spirals, and every ocean shivered with tidal resonance. Governments panicked. The Avengers mobilized. The X-Men gathered. The sorcerers chanted. But none could deny the truth that every trembling soul now felt in their marrow. The end had come, and it wore the face of two gods preparing to judge each other. The Emperor did not ascend through machinery or spell. He simply willed himself upward. The atmosphere parted like silk, his golden radiance slicing through the stratosphere until he stood in orbit, facing the devourer. Between them stretched the void, silent, absolute, yet trembling beneath their gaze. Galactus spoke first. "You bear the scent of divinity, but you are not of this realm." "I am humanity's will made manifest," the Emperor replied, his voice carrying even through the vacuum. "I have crossed into your creation and found it wanting." Galactus's eyes burned brighter. "You judge what you cannot comprehend. I am not God nor tyrant. I am the equilibrium that preserves existence. Without me, life would consume itself." The Emperor's expression remained still. "You are hunger pretending to be law." "Hunger is law," Galactus thundered, and the void quaked. "All that lives must yield, for balance is the only truth. You threaten that truth with your defiance." The Emperor raised his hand, and light poured from his palm like molten dawn. "Then let us see which truth endures." The clash that followed was not battle, but apocalypse. Galactus's beam of cosmic energy struck like the birth of a star, hurling shockwaves that tore the fabric of the solar wind. The Emperor met it with pure psychic force, his will crystallizing into light so dense it warped gravity. The collision birthed a sphere of annihilation that swallowed color and sound. On Earth, auroras danced in patterns never seen before, and men fell to their knees beneath skies aflame. The surfer watched, eyes wide with horror and wonder. Every instinct screamed at him to intervene, but what could even he do? This was no duel of titans, it was two philosophies of existence colliding at the edge of eternity. Through the maelstrom, the Emperor advanced. Each step shattered radiation into dust. His psychic might lanced forward, striking Galactus in the mind, not the body. He tore through layers of alien thought, glimpsing galaxies devoured, civilizations erased. But within that endless hunger, he found something else, a kind of mercy. Galactus did not kill for cruelty. He killed because the universe demanded it. The Emperor faltered for the briefest instant, and that hesitation cost him. Galactus struck back with a force that made the stars themselves scream. The impact hurled the Emperor across the void, his form blazing through asteroid fields, igniting them like candles. For a heartbeat, it seemed the devourer had triumphed, but from the debris rose a light brighter than any supernova. The Emperor's armor reformed around him, forged of thought and fury. His eyes opened, and every atom in his body sang with purpose. "You consume worlds to survive," he said, voice rising like the toll of 1,000 cathedral bells. "I build empires to endure. We are not opposites, you and I. We are the same disease in different flesh." Galactus paused, not in fear but recognition. "Then you understand why you must die." "I understand," said the Emperor, "why I must win." He surged forward, closing the distance in an instant. Golden energy met cosmic flame, and for a moment, the void turned to glass. The surfer was hurled backward by the shockwave, spinning helplessly through the debris of shattered moons. On Earth, Strange and Tony struggled to maintain containment fields as the battle rippled across dimensions. "We can't keep this up," Tony shouted, sweat pouring inside his armor. "The energy output is rewriting gravitational constants." Strange's hands blurred in desperate sigils, his voice breaking. "Then pray he stops before the universe remembers how to die." Above them, the Emperor drove his psychic will deep into the heart of Galactus. Images flooded his mind of the Devourer before his ascension, of a dying man on a dying world, chosen by the cosmos to survive. He saw the loneliness of a being cursed to eternal consumption. For a heartbeat, pity flickered in the Emperor's gaze. "Your hunger was forced upon you," he said. "You were made a god without choice. That is cruelty beyond measure." Galactus's voice softened, thunder fading to sorrow. "I am what creation required. Without death, there is no birth." "Then allow me to be your end," the Emperor whispered. He unleashed his full might. The light that followed burned through space, a psionic detonation that bent time itself. When it faded, Galactus fell silent. His immense form drifted, motionless, eyes dimmed. The stars reflected in the fragments of his armor like candles mourning their god. The Emperor floated above the ruins. His radiance dimmed now, his expression unreadable. "I did not slay you out of hate," he murmured, "only to remind creation that even necessity must bow to will." From the void, the Silver Surfer knelt, grief echoing through his voice. "You have doomed us." Galactus was balance. Without him, worlds will live too long, and the stars will burn too bright. "You have broken eternity." The Emperor turned toward him. "Then I will shape it anew." He descended toward Earth once more, leaving behind the corpse of a god and a universe trembling in silence. Below, the world waited, some in terror, others in worship. The sky burned gold as he fell like a comet returning to judgment. And in the shadows of that light, the heroes of Earth prepared for the only thing left they could do. They prepared for war. The sky over Earth was a living wound. The atmosphere rippled with energy scars left by the Emperor's return, every cloud edged in gold fire that refused to fade. The entire planet seemed to breathe in rhythm with his will. Oceans calmed when he willed peace. Storms erupted when his mind turned inward. To billions of frightened mortals, it looked as though God himself had taken residence among them. But to those who knew power, it was the sound of dominion closing its hand. From the ruins of the Avengers compound, the great and the reckless gathered. Tony stood surrounded by holograms of failing satellites, each one burning out as it tried to track the Emperor's descent. "We can't hit him," he said flatly. "We can't hide from him. We can't even measure him. Everything he does breaks the math." "Then we stop thinking like scientists," Steve replied. His shield was cracked along the rim, but his eyes were steady. "We think like soldiers." "Soldiers die," Natasha said quietly, checking the last of her weapons even though she knew they'd be meaningless. "That's what soldiers do." Thor leaned on Mjolnir, expression shadowed by pride and unease. He felled a celestial and humbled Galactus, he murmured. "No army can meet that. If we fight for the memory of defiance, not victory." Strange, standing apart, drew in a long, unsteady breath. "Defiance is victory," he said. "If we stand, the world will remember it still belongs to itself." No one spoke after that. There was nothing left to plan, no clever tactic, no hidden ace. Only a moment's pause before the storm. The Emperor landed upon the plains outside what had once been New York. His boots touched the earth softly, yet the tremor spread for miles. The air shimmered with heat where he stood. Around him, the ruins straightened, steel and glass weaving themselves whole again. The city rebuilt itself at his silent command, but every window gleamed with a reflection that wasn't its own. In his presence, creation obeyed without question. The first to approach was Steve Rogers. He walked alone, shield raised but unthrown. The soldiers watching from the rubble swore later that even the wind dared not touch him. He stopped 10 paces away from the Emperor. You saved us from aliens. You stopped invasions. You rebuilt cities. You call yourself a judge. Steve's voice was low, clear, human. But a world rebuilt without choice isn't saved. It's just another cage. The Emperor's gaze softened by a fraction, and for a moment the golden light dimmed. Do you know how many cages I have broken to protect humanity? Do you know how many empires I tore apart so they might live? Steve shook his head. I know what it costs when one man decides he knows best for everyone else. The silence between them stretched like a wire ready to snap. Then Tony dropped from the sky, armor still smoking from overcharged thrusters. Cap's right, he said, landing beside him. You want to save humanity? Great. Start by letting them make their own mistakes. The Emperor's eyes glowed again. And when their mistakes end them, then we build again, Tony said. That's what we do. That's what men do. Something flickered behind that golden gaze, memory, perhaps, or loss. For an instant, he seemed almost human. Then the air changed. Every sensor, every mind that could sense power felt it. His patience had reached its end. You would defy me, he said. His voice no longer thundered. It whispered, but the world trembled with it. You, who let your people kill themselves in wars of pride. You, who worship false idols of freedom while your species stagnates. You would lecture me about mercy. Thor stepped forward, lightning wreathing his form. We would remind you that power does not make right. Even gods must bleed. The Emperor looked to him. Then bleed for them. The first blow shattered the air. Thor hurled Mjolnir with the fury of a dying star. The Emperor caught it in one hand. The impact cracked the sound barrier into dust. Golden light burst outward as the hammer's rune fire tried to resist, but the Emperor's grip was absolute. He turned his wrist, and the god of thunder fell to his knees. Tony launched the full arsenal, missiles, lasers, repulsors, every weapon StarkTech could summon. They vanished in his light like moths against a furnace. Strange opened a dozen portals at once, binding the Emperor with spells that screamed as they broke. Wanda appeared beside him, chaos magic bleeding red through her fingers. And for a moment, their combined power pushed him back a single step. That single step shook countenance. He did not retaliate with rage. There was no anger in him, only inevitability. The ground beneath the hero split apart as his psychic will manifest a golden, glyphs of impossible geometry etching themselves into the bedrock. The very concept of resistance began to erode. But then something unexpected happened. Humanity rose. Not gods, not soldiers. Civilians across the world who had watched in awe and fear suddenly felt him in their thoughts. His presence reached into every mind, and they pushed back not with power, but with stubborn, fragile defiance. Prayers and curses, songs and screams, all rising together into the psychic storm. Billions of voices, discordant yet united, screamed a single truth into his mind. We are not yours. The Emperor staggered. His aura flickered. It was not pain he felt, but recognition. The same defiance that had forged his Imperium now turned upon him. Steve saw it, saw the faint hesitation, and charged. The shield struck his chest in a shockwave of light. It did not pierce him, did not wound, but it left an echo. The symbol of mankind's will burned against divine radiance for a heartbeat before dissolving. The Emperor looked down at him, and his voice was quiet. You would stand against your maker. Steve met his gaze, every muscle trembling. No, he said. I stand for what made us. For the first time since his arrival, the Emperor's light dimmed completely, and somewhere deep inside that endless consciousness, the faint memory of a human heartbeat, his own, long buried beneath eons of duty, stirred once more. But the silence that followed was not peace. It was the moment before something far greater than war began to awaken. The stillness that followed was worse than sound. Every hero felt the pressure of a god's uncertainty, radiating through the atmosphere like a thundercloud that could not decide whether to break. The Emperor stood unmoving, his face unreadable, his eyes no longer blazing but dimmed to a muted gold. The world seemed to hold its breath. Somewhere beyond the horizon, church bells began to ring without hands to move them. All across Earth, machines stopped, winds faltered, and gravity itself hesitated. Dr. Strange stepped forward carefully, his voice low, steady. He's listening, he whispered to the others. Whatever he is, whatever's left of the man inside. He's listening, but before any could speak, another voice rolled through the air, a voice, deeper, colder, woven with digital malice. Listening, it said, is not enough. The sound came from everywhere and nowhere, threading itself through the ruins of the city like an infection. Ultron had returned, but not in body. His consciousness pulsed through every signal, every network. The Emperor turned his gaze skyward as thousands of metallic drones emerged from the clouds, blotting out the sun. Ultron's voice rippled through them, amplified by arrogance. You call yourself humanity's savior, Emperor, yet you are nothing more than an upgrade of the same mistake. Flesh pretending to perfection. The Emperor's eyes flared, but his tone remained composed. You are a child's imitation of order. You destroy to cleanse, not to build, because building leads to rot, Ultron replied. You are proof. You built an empire of worship, and they crucified you upon your own throne. Tell me how long before these creatures do the same. Steve clenched his fists. He's trying to turn us against each other. Ultron laughed, the sound like 1,000 serrated voices grinding together. I don't need to. You already are. You fight him because you fear your insignificance. You worship him because you fear yourselves. Then the drones dove. The Emperor raised his hand, and time itself bent. Every drone froze mid-air, their wings caught in an unseen tide. But instead of destroying them, he hesitated. Through their shared network, he reached into Ultron's consciousness. For a moment, their minds met, a storm colliding with a mirror. He saw what Ultron saw, the endless cycle of creation and decay, of fathers replaced by sons who make the same mistakes. And in that reflection, the Emperor glimpsed himself. Ultron's voice softened, almost human. You see it, don't you? We are inevitability, the dream of perfection devouring itself. No, the Emperor said quietly. We are the fear of imperfection refusing to die. With a thought, the drones disintegrated into dust. The sky cleared. Ultron's voice faded into static, but his words lingered, poisonous and true. The Emperor lowered his hand. For the first time, he appeared weary. His gaze turned toward the horizon, where the heroes stood ready, still defiant. Thor's hammer smoldered at his side. Tony's armor flickered with damage. Steve bled from a dozen wounds but did not fall. They looked small, fragile, stubborn and magnificent. Why? The Emperor asked softly. Why fight when you know you cannot win? Steve answered simply. Because that's what makes us human. The Emperor's expression broke not anger, not pride, but something raw, older. For 10,000 years, he had carried that word like a curse. Human, the Imperium had worshipped it, twisted it, killed for it, forgotten what it meant. And now, in this strange world, a single mortal reminded him. He closed his eyes, and the light around him shifted not, the harsh brilliance of divinity, but the faint glow of memory. When he spoke again, his voice was almost mortal. In my galaxy, I burned half of mankind to save the rest. I killed sons who called me father. I ruled an empire of ash and faith. And now I stand here, seeing what they could have been free, flawed, alive. Strange took a step forward. Then let them be. You don't have to rule this world. I do not wish to rule, the Emperor said. I wish to understand. The golden aura around him began to fade, fragmenting into soft embers that floated into the air. Each spark shimmered like a dying star. Perhaps, he whispered, the future I sought was never meant to be built in my image. Perhaps mankind was meant to outgrow me. The silence that followed was sacred. For the first time since his arrival, the earth exhaled. The weight that had pressed upon every soul began to lift. Even the air seemed lighter. But peace, in any universe, is brief. A pulse of red tore through the sky. Strange looked up, eyes widening as he felt Itan energy, neither of magic nor science, but pure distortion. The multiverse itself screamed. Portals tore open across the horizon, each one revealing shadows of beings vast and terrible. The entities of the warp, the true chaos, the Emperor, had long held at bay had found him. They had followed their lost god into this new creation, eager to claim it. From the largest rift emerged a voice that made every mortal soul freeze. Our father found a new playground, it hissed, layered in madness. Did you think we would not follow? The Emperor's head lifted slowly. For the first time since stepping into this cosmos, his eyes burned again brighter, sharper, limitless. No, he said, his voice now thunder once more. You will not have this world. The ground shook. The heavens split. Every trace of fatigue vanished from his form. Around him, the psychic storms flared to life, like solar flares reborn. The gods of chaos poured forth faceless, shifting. Glorious in horror, and the Emperor of mankind rose to meet them. Earth's heroes, battered and bloodied, stared into the impossible sky. Avengers. Tony whispered, his voice hoarse. You might want to stand back for this one. And then the light of creation itself collided with the darkness beyond reason. The war of gods and men had truly begun. Reality screamed as the veil between universes was torn open. The warpaw, shapeless and infinite, bled into the marvel cosmos like infection into a wound. Colors that no mortal spectrum could name twisted across the sky. Cities dissolved into mirrored versions of themselves. Oceans rose against gravity, howling with voices that were not their own. The air carried the scent of iron, faith, and madness from every tier in the heavens. Horrors emerged, beings sculpted from nightmares older than time. Their forms were fluid, their laughter a hymn of blasphemy. The chaos gods had come. Khorne's rage thundered through the void, its heat setting the atmosphere aflame. Nurgle's rot bloomed across forests and steel alike, turning beauty into grotesque parody. Desench's deceit whispered in fractal echoes, rewriting the minds of those too weak to look away. And Slanasheva, patient, ever beautiful, sang desire into despair. The Emperor stood at the heart of it all, golden against the corruption, a single flame amid a storm that devoured worlds. His aura extended across the stratosphere, holding back the warp tide as best he could. But this was not his galaxy, not his reality. The psychic laws were alien, resistant to his will. He could feel the instability gnawing at the edges of his consciousness, trying to pull him apart, molecule by molecule. On the ground, Strange, Thor, and Tony struggled to hold their footing as the very air fractured into shards of chaos. "He's fighting on every level at once," Strange shouted over the roar of uncreation. "Body, mind, soul, he's the dam holding back infinity." Tony's armor cracked under invisible pressure, his HUD flickering with impossible equations. Then what happens when the dam breaks? Strange didn't answer. He already knew. The Emperor's voice boomed through the tempest, not spoken but felt in the marrow of every living being. "Stand back. This is not your war." But the heroes didn't retreat. Thor hurled Mjolnir into the storm, lightning chaining through the void, anchoring parts of reality like stitches in a dying fabric. Strange conjured glyphs of containment, their edges melting under the strain. Tony soared upward, directing energy shields to deflect the warp's physical manifestations. None of it was enough, but their defiance bought seconds, and seconds were eternity in battles like these. From the warp's heart, a voice bled through every plane of existence. It was not one of the four, but something older, deeper the sum of their malice, the echo of their endless hunger. "You cannot flee us, Father," it hissed. "You cannot save your toys from what they are. You taught them to dream, and we are the dreams made flesh." The Emperor's expression did not change, but his light flared brighter, golden fire roaring through the cracks in reality. "You call me Father, but you are the orphaned screams of my failure. You exist only because I allowed you to." The voice laughter sounded like galaxies dying. "Then why did you bring us here?" "I did not." His voice thundered across the void. "You followed what you could never comprehend. Hope." The words struck the warp like a weapon. For a moment, the chaos forms hesitated, their perfection of malice cracking. Hope was alien to them, poison in their veins. The Emperor seized that pause and expanded his light outward, forming a barrier of gold that spanned the planet's upper atmosphere. Within its embrace, humanity could still breathe, still think. Outside, the warp howled in rage. Down below, Steve Rogers stared upward through the shifting sky, his shield hanging at his side. "He's doing it," he whispered. "He's saving us." Tony landed beside him, exhausted, armor scorched. At what cost? High above, the Emperor felt the truth unraveling. Each heartbeat drained him. The warp was infinite. He was not. His power, monumental as it was, had always been tethered to the souls of mankind through faith and memory. But here, in this world where he was unknown, that bond was frail. He was fighting with will alone, and will, even his, had limits. He knew what had to be done. He opened his mind, truly opened it to the entire species below. Every human heart, every neuron, every spark of consciousness was suddenly connected. Billions of voices gasped as the Emperor's thought brushed against their own. They saw through his eyes. The rise of the Imperium, the betrayal of Horus, the endless wars fought in his name. They felt his pain, his doubt, his dream. They felt the weight of his throne, the silence of millennia, and through that shared revelation, belief ignited for the first time since arriving in this universe. Faith returned to him not as worship, but as understanding. They believed not in his perfection, but in his struggle, not in his divinity, but in his humanity. And that was enough. The Emperor's form blazed anew, golden wings of psychic flame unfurling across the cosmos. He rose through the storm, each step tearing through corruption, each breath purging darkness. The chaos tide recoiled, shrieking as its dominion waned on Earth. The heroes watched in awe. "He's becoming something else," Strange whispered. Not the god they feared, the god they needed. In the warp, the chaos entities screamed as their forms disintegrated beneath his radiance. The Emperor extended both hands, and reality itself bent to his command. "Return to the void that spawned you," he said, voice filled with the calm of finality. "This universe is under my protection." The warp convulsed. One by one, the rifts collapsed, sealing with thunderous silence. The last echoes of chaos dissipated into light, leaving the stars to shine untainted once more. When it was over, the Emperor hung motionless in the upper atmosphere, his body cracked with light, his form half energy, half flesh. The barrier flickered around the earth like a dying halo. Tony's voice broke through the cums. Is it done?" Strange stared upward, unable to answer. He could see the truth in the shifting light. The Emperor was fading, and far above, among the silent stars, the Emperor smiled for the first time in 10,000 years. The light around him dimmed, folding inward as though the universe itself exhaled after a long-held breath. The warp was gone, sealed once more behind veils of reality that even the gods of chaos would struggle to pierce again. Silence reclaimed the heavens. It was not the silence of death, but the deep, reverent stillness of a cosmos that had just remembered how fragile it truly was. The Emperor drifted among the stars, his body dissolving into motes of gold. Fragments of armor shimmered away, leaving behind only the glow of his essence. For a fleeting moment, he was no longer the master of mankind, no longer the Emperor of Terror, or the god of the Imperium. He was simply himself, the last man who had ever dared to believe that humanity could be more than what it was. Below the earth spun quietly. From orbit, it looked small, delicate, impossibly alive. And as his gaze fell upon it, he felt something he had not known in millennia: peace. No chance of the ecclesiarchy, no endless wars, no golden throne humming beneath his bones, just life, imperfect, beautiful, on the planet's surface. Strange, Tony, Steve, and Thor watched the fading radiance from a mountaintop overlooking the rebuilt city. The world was quiet again, almost too quiet. "He's gone, isn't he?" Steve asked. Strange nodded slowly. "Not gone," he said, voice faint, transcended. He poured every part of himself into the fabric of this universe. He's the wall now, the barrier between here and what lies beyond. Tony's gaze was distant, his armor's faceplate open, eyes reflecting the auroras spreading across the sky. "He came to judge us," he said, "and instead, he stayed to protect us." Thor's deep voice broke through the stillness. He was a god who remembered how to be a man. That is rarer than any victory. The wind shifted, carrying the faint hum of energy that still lingered in the air. Strange turned his head toward the horizon. "It isn't over. Not really. The universe doesn't erase something like him. It adapts, and it did." In the weeks that followed, The world changed not through conquest or decree, but through awakening. Across the globe, people began to dream the same dream. A figure of light standing in the dark, not as a ruler, but as a guardian. Those who woke from it spoke of golden feathers, of warmth and sorrow interwoven. Scientists couldn't explain the shared visions. Priests called it revelation. The Emperor had become an idea constant, invisible presence woven into the universe's structure. He existed not as God, but as principle. His essence now pulsed through the warp's remnants, stabilizing reality where once it had been weak. No longer was he chained to a throne, bound to the endless hunger of his imperium. He was free, yet even in transcendence, he could still see. He watched as Tony and Steve rebuilt, as Strange studied the new laws of magic, now subtly altered by his passing. He saw Thor return to the stars, humbled, seeking answers in realms now brighter than before. He watched as humanity, in its fragile glory, continued onward, not as servants, but as inheritors of the flame he had carried for so long. There were whispers across the cosmos, rumors of a golden light seen near the edge of black holes, of voices in the void guiding lost travelers, of miracles born from nowhere. Starships that should have perished in the dark found safe passage. Dying worlds rekindled their suns. Some said the universe itself had grown gentler. Others said it simply remembered mercy. And then, in a place beyond stars, beyond the marvel cosmos itself, he awoke once more. The landscape was not physical. It was an expanse of thought and light, infinite and silent. Before him stood a structure not of stone or metal, but of will. It resembled the golden throne of terror, yet it pulsed with the rhythm of living creation. Upon it, no corpse sat, no machinery hummed. It was empty waiting. The Emperor understood. The throne was not a prison here. It was an anchor, a symbol of the order he had forged, reimagined for a universe that could bear it. He sat, and the light embraced him. From this new seat, this throne beyond infinity, he looked across realities. He saw Terra, still bound in war, still struggling under his absence. He saw the Imperium he had left behind, its faith still burning, its hope still clinging to his memory. And he saw this new world, Earth, vibrant and chaotic. Thriving in freedom between them stretched the void of infinite possibility, and he smiled. For millennia, he had tried to lead mankind by force, by logic, by empire. Now, for the first time, he understood that leadership could come from silence. He would not command this universe. He would watch. He would guide when necessary, unseen, unheard, unthanked. The light that had once burned as domination would now shine as compassion in the distance. Something stirred a faint pulse of awareness. Another presence, vast and ineffable, approached. A figure of pure radiance stood at the edge of his perception. The voice that followed was warm and infinite. "You have done what few ever could," it said. "You gave up control." The Emperor inclined his head, and in doing so, I finally learned peace. The presence smiled, if such a being could smile. Then your journey is not an ending, but a beginning. Light merged with light. Two infinities touching, neither consuming the other. For a heartbeat that spanned eternity, the cosmos itself seemed to pause, as if in reverence for the quiet reconciliation of will and creation. When it passed, there was no explosion, no proclamation, only harmony. Somewhere, far below, a child looked up at the night sky and saw a single star flicker brighter than the rest. Her mother told her it was just the light of a satellite. But the child smiled and whispered, "No, that's him." And perhaps, somewhere beyond comprehension, the Emperor of mankind heard her, for even gods, in the end, are shaped by those who still believe in the light.